is the responsible party for this disaster. As far as I'm concerned, BP is responsible for this horrific disaster, and we will hold them fully accountable on behalf of the United States. Ultimately, it is our folks down there who are responsible. If they're not satisfied with something that's happening, then they need to let us know, and we will immediately question BP. BP, under the Oil Pollution Act of 1990, is considered the responsible party. What we need is actions that make sure that BP is being held accountable.
Huh. BP being held accountable. Imagine that. Seems like they've gotten a free ride so far. Seems like whatever they want to do, they pretty much get to do. Seems like they don't care about the beaches, the swamplands, the marsh areas, the animals, the people. They don't care. They can't get the fucking oil fucking right. They can't even fuck the oil right. No, I'm not swearing. Check it out. When they get those booms out there, it's called fucking the oil. Do your research. So, Obama wants to do this investigation, but before I get to the investigation, let's talk about the serious stuff. So here we go. It says, oil nears Florida as BP tries risky cap move. As submersible robots make another risky attempt to control the underwater Gulf oil gusher, the crude on the surface spread, closing in on Florida. BP stock plummeted and took much of the market down with it, and the federal government announced criminal and civil investigations into the spill. Why do we need an investigation? I don't understand. I mean, we know what happened. We know who's responsible. They already had several investigations ready, and now we're going to do another investigation on top of the investigation? Story continues. The stakes couldn't be higher, and I agree. After 6 weeks of failures to block the well or divert the oil, the latest mission involved using a set of tools, akin an oversized deli slicer and garden shears to break away the broken riser pipes so engineers can then position the cap over the well's opening. Essentially, they're just going to chop it off and try to put a cap over it. But it's a big gamble. Even if it succeeds, it will temporarily increase the flow of an already massive leak by 20%. At least 100,000 gallons more a day. That's on top of the estimated already 500,000 to 1 million gallons a day already gushing out. In Florida, officials confirmed an oil sheen about 9 miles out from the famous white sands of Pensacola Beach. Crews showed up miles of boom and prepared for the mess to make landfall as early as Wednesday. People, if that oil gets around Florida, and it's not a question of if, because it's going to, one way or another, whether it's going to do it by itself, by the flow, or when a tropical storm or a hurricane comes through, it's going to push it out into the Atlantic. Once that oil hits the Atlantic, it's going to be balls to the wall, guys. You might as well grab your bug out bag and head for the north. This is getting serious, people. I mean, it's getting crazy serious. It's inevitable that we see it on the beaches, says Keith Wilkins, Deputy Chief of the Neighborhood and Community Services for Escambia County. Florida would be the 4th state hit by the oil. Crude has already been reported along Barrier Island in Alabama, Mississippi, and obviously in 125 miles of coastline of Louisiana. More federal fishing waters were closed to another setback, again, for one of the region's most important industries. It's their most important industry. You know, that would be like turning off the electricity for the big three. Do you understand that? I'm here in Michigan. It'd be like, all right, guys, you guys need to build your cars where you can't use electricity. How are you going to do it? I mean, granted, they did it 150 years ago or whatever, but it goes on to say, more than 1/3 of the federal waters were off limits for fishing, along with hundreds of square miles of state waters. That means that the waters, not the ocean, they're talking about the lakes that border the ocean. Fisherman Hong Lee, who came from the U.S. from Vietnam, has built his home and business after Hurricane Katrina wiped him out. Now he's facing a similar situation. So what he's saying is, he had to establish business, Katrina came through, wiped out, he reestablished his business, and the government crapped on him with all this oil. Lee, like other fishermen, received, listen to this, this is a laugh. Lee, like other fishermen, received $5,000 from BP, but it was quickly gone. Lee says, I call that shut your mouth money. Mr. Volk, 46, of Empire, who has been fishing for nearly 30 years, that $5,000 won't pay the insurance on my boat or my house. They say there will be more later, but do you think the electric company will wait for that? And the story goes on and on and on. People, I'm at a loss for words. Okay, the bottom line is this. All right, if that oil gets around Florida, if it gets around the panhandle of Florida and into the Atlantic, you know, someone mentioned to me before that if this oil actually starts leaking to another country's water boundaries, that this could turn into an international incident. And I never thought about that. It could turn into an international incident. And then, I guess if that happened, perhaps the UN would be involved. I really don't know. But think about it. And here's another thing to think about. You know, we got all this oil in the Gulf, and I've been sending out some great videos, but you know, if a hurricane comes through, everyone south of the Mason-Dixon line is going to be in grave danger. Everyone. And everyone north of the Mason-Dixon line is going to be in great danger. And everyone east of the Mississippi, if a hurricane comes through, as a whole, everyone should be on guard and be ready at a moment's notice. But here's my thing. I live in Michigan, like I've said several times. And sometimes when a hurricane comes through, depending on whether it goes east of the Appalachians or west of the Appalachians, those high winds do make it up here to Michigan. You know, we've had days of rain when a big hurricane comes through, like when Katrina came through. We eventually got some of that rain. So here's my thing, and think about this, folks, and comment about this, and tell me what you think. If a huge number 5 category hurricane comes through and just happens to go anywhere near New Orleans and comes up into the Midwest carrying all that oil with it, do you think that some of that oil might end up in the Great Lakes, the world's greatest freshwater supply? You think about that. What if the world's greatest freshwater supply gets tainted by oil? Not to mention all the crops, all the livestock, all the vegetation, everything. Having a light sheen of oil on it. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think the investigation is silly. I still think BP is dragging their feet. I think Obama needs to pull his head out of his ass. Have a good day. And good luck.